Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Trent and I have a special treat for you guys. We both are pretty big UFC fans and fight fans in general, whether it's mixed martial arts, whether it's boxing,
hmm
and we don't talk about it enough. And, like I said, we're going to kind of get back to our roots on this channel and talking about everything we love. And Trent, pretty big card this weekend, UFC 263, Adesanya versus Vittori 2.
Yes, sir.
And wanted to get your thoughts on it and just rap a little bit, man. So,
So
Izzy
yeah,
coming off the loss, man. What are your thoughts?
so I know people are gonna think that did did Jan figure out the Rubik's cube that is Adesanya, but he was just a bigger fighter. It took him till the third round to take him down and impose his will. I think you're going to see greatness again. You're going to see what Adesanya does, especially since he's been actually quiet this whole time until Vittori opened his mouth and started talking trash to him during the video press conference, which I don't think that's the smart thing to do. You don't want to wake a sleeping giant. I think you're going to see the best version of him. One of the things that we always talk about with football, there's levels to different things, and this is a guy who's been training for uh, championship fights for the past 5 fights, I think it is total. And this is the first time that Vittori's training for a 5 rounder. So it's the only way he's going to beat him is if he takes him down early and imposes his will early. Which we rewatched the first fight. And one thing that Adesanya doesn't get credit for is his actual takedown defense. It took him till the middle of the third round in the first fight to take him down, but he popped up. He popped up both times, and he didn't take much damage. So, I just think he's a special fighter. I think that we're gonna see greatness again because I think he wants to set that stage. Be like, look, I went up and I challenged myself. You know, I rule this. I'm the king. No one's gonna beat me. No one, honestly, in the UFC. I mean, he's cleaned out the division, and this will set that in stone.
So, and you answered the question pretty, obviously favorable for Israel Adesanya in terms of him getting back on track at UFC 263. It looks like that's your expectation. I have a few more questions
Mhm.
because I think in any time in combat sports when you're coming off a loss, and we understand Izzy was pushing himself, challenging himself, going up to what was it, light heavyweight to
Mhm.
fight Blachowicz, and it was a significant size difference. I think Izzy only ended up getting up to around 190 pounds for that fight. I think they have like a 205 limit, and he didn't even get to that point, right? So um, it was technically as good as he normally is, but I agree with you. And in the whole, another fight we'll talk about here in a second about people like saying there's weight classes for a reason, right? And at a certain point when we engage, whether you have speed, footwork, quickness, all that, once we engage and get in that clinch, it's very, very difficult to defend against a man that much bigger than you. So while I'm we kind of give him the he was pushing himself and challenging himself pass. I do wonder what that does to somebody like Izzy psychologically. And I think, you've been telling me from jump, hey, that's not a concern, Steve, because he's actually one of the stronger, more confident guys upstairs. But he hasn't taken a loss in the UFC. I think he was 20-0 before the loss of Blachowicz. So when you have that kind of run coming off a loss, it's like chink in the armor, so to speak. And not that he hasn't had close calls in other fights, but always pulling out that dub matters. And coming into this fight against a guy who he hasn't, yes, they fought the first time, and like Tran said, we watched the fight, but that was 3 years ago. And the way guys evolve as fighters, the way the trajectory that their careers have taken since 2018, where they were both kind of on the come up at that point, some of that you almost kind of throw away, right? And to, your point earlier, now Vittori, his last two fights, I just want to make a correction. His last two fights were 5-round fights,
They were.
but yes, they were 5-round fights. But this particular, Adesanya Vittori one was a 3-round fight, where Izzy was, won round one, round two decisively, in our opinion, and then Vittori was able to get some takedowns, was able to get into his wrestling and really kind of maul on Izzy, which is what Blachowicz was able to do. But in this weight class, can Vittori execute that in a 5-round fight while maintaining his conditioning? I don't see that being the case personally. So I do think Izzy will bounce back. I have my questions. I do think he'll win on points and get the decision. But
So with that,
oh, go ahead.
with that said, if he does win, where do they go with Izzy? Where does the UFC go with Izzy after he's cleaned out the division? I mean, there's a big difference between number one and number two, which I would say it'd be Robert Whitaker would be number two in the middleweight division for the UFC. And you saw him; he starched Robert Whitaker. So where do they go?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because do you go back to Whitaker at that point? I mean, like he's got to be like, I need another opportunity, right? Like where I'm more so because you're more familiar with the division than I am. I mean, where?
So I would personally, if I'm Dana White, I'm putting a call into Alex Pereira, who's in I think Glory Fighting or Pride Fighting, one of those overseas. He's the last guy, but and middleweight to beat Adesanya, and he knocked him out. He's beaten him twice. He beat him
Was that
on
in
judges.
kickboxing?
Yeah, it was
Or
in
was that
kickboxing, but still,
okay?
I mean, he knocked him out cold. I mean, that's the one that I mean that's the fight that you could sell. Like, this is the guy that beat Adesanya, and not just beat him, he beat him. So that if I'm Dana White, I'm trying to find a way to get him over here, just from at least a 3-fight contract or something like that.
Well, it's gonna be a fun card. I know you're really excited for the Figueredo fight on the card.
The
I'm
little quick
excited.
guys, the little quick
I
guys.
love the little man fights. I love those fights. I'm excited for Diaz Edwards. I think that's going to be both of those, the Figueredo fight, Diaz Edwards, those could be fight of the night candidates. I mean, anytime Diaz in there, it's almost guaranteed to be fight of the night. The way he throws down, right? So
he might be bleeding walking down the aisle.
So between those bouts, and then obviously finishing with the technician himself, Israel Adesanya, can Marvin Vittori, who was very, very upset when he lost that fight in 2018, can he avenge that loss? Maybe get to work earlier and get the takedown the first couple rounds and really wear down Adesanya the way Blachowicz was able to do. Should be interesting, but I think we both have Izzy in that fight rather comfortably. I do want to switch gears here. By the way, make sure you support the channel. Trying to get to 10K, so support us. We appreciate it. We're almost there. Less than 300 people to go. So jump on the bandwagon. Let's get there. There was a exhibition match, I should say, on Sunday. I'll leave it. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to put the topic on the screen. Floyd Money Mayweather against Logan Paul. I have Paul up here. Some people just like to call them both Jake Paul, which is hilarious to me. But Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul, the older Paul brother, they had a 8-round exhibition boxing match in Miami. I tweeted and I thought the fight itself was rather gross from the perspective of just like me being a boxing head and purist. I'm not really interested in and then you could tell that, Floyd was carrying him at a lot of points in the fight, and I know a lot of people are giving credit to Logan Paul, as they should, for making it through and absorbing some of the blows and showing very, very good conditioning on his part. He looked enormous in the ring compared to Floyd Mayweather, but it just wasn't my cup of tea, man. For for what they were trying to do, I was in on Mayweather McGregor because I was taken seriously, and that was an actual sanctioned professional fight. But this one, it was more for social
So
media and a money grab. So I don't know.
so
What are your thoughts?
the good that happened from it was I was happy that Logan Paul took it as serious as he did. He didn't just use it as a money grab. He I mean, of course he took the money, of course, but he trained for it. You can tell he trained for it. I knew what was going to happen. I knew he was going to come out quick and try to hopefully catch one. But and I knew that Floyd would just outpoint him. I didn't think Floyd was going to knock him out within 8 rounds or anything like that. I didn't expect that. I mean, everyone's talking about how Floyd didn't knock him out. It's like Floyd is so good at age 44. He wasn't in the best shape of his life, and you saw he lost a little something because he didn't train as much as he probably would normally train.
And he's still
And
in.
he's
He's
still
still in.
dominated. He's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
dominated. A kid half his age almost.
And he's coming forward the
Yeah.
entire fight against a guy
A
twice
guy
his
who's
size.
200 pounds almost. So I
Yeah,
mean,
like
yeah,
during
it
this.
was a spectacle, and it's Floyd, so people are gonna buy the fights. And Floyd told everyone straight up, like, "Hey, it's money. Like, I'm here for money."
Organized,
Yeah.
what do you say, organized legal bank robbery,
Yes.
right? and
Yeah.
and I'm not mad at him for taking the bread. I expect
Oh,
him at some point to fight Jake Paul, right? Like I am not mad at Floyd for getting his money. I'm not mad at the Paul brothers for what they're doing. So, because the question at the bottom of the screen we have here is this bad for boxing? And my answer to that is an unequivocally no. This is not bad for boxing. The problems, and this is I don't want to go on a rant, but I feel it coming. The problem with boxing is not stuff like this. The problem with boxing is the people that run boxing. The problem with boxing is self-inflicted. I think sports in general is about characters. You have to develop your characters, and if you have the characters there, people will come. The UFC, more people actually understand and can follow boxing than they can the UFC. A lot of people don't understand Muay Thai and all this type of stuff. But what Dana White has understood is developing characters rather quickly and getting the big fights. The big fights matter, and people got to fight each other. We're not going to wait. You're not going to dodge somebody for multiple years, and you also don't have all these different belts, right? You have one UFC championship, so that's part of the success that they've had. And then you look at the Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder mess,
Wilder. Yep.
right? That's the problem with boxing. That's what's bad for boxing. You know what's bad for boxing? Bud Crawford not yet fighting Earl Spence, and they're about to come out of their primes. And yeah, am I excited for Spence and Manny Pacquiao? Hell yeah. Did I watch Manny Pacquiao against Keith Thurman Jr.? Hell yeah. But you have two people in their primes, and Earl Spence and Bud Crawford, who aren't fighting each other. So don't sit up here and try to tell me that Floyd Mayweather at 44 and Logan Paul and a celebrity spectacle, as you mentioned, is bad for the sport. Instead, we should be, and I thought Max Kellerman made this point so eloquently, we should be embracing stuff like this because at least they're bringing eyeballs. And if they're bringing eyeballs, a lot of these boxing purists, myself included, need to get out the way and load up the undercards of these events with real fighters. I think that would be my thing. Like, I know. Hurd was on the card. Badu Jax, to me, he's
He's
washed at this
done.
point.
Yeah, he's
He's
done.
done. But I'm talking about like, Ryan Garcia was there. Ryan Garcia is on the come up. That's one of the guys that they want to be a big star. Teofimo Lopez, who beat Loma. Like, you have all these dudes out here. All these guys are not any better or worse than the previous generation of fighters. The thing is, the previous generation of fighters, whether it was Roy Jones Jr. or Felix Tito Trinidad or Winky Wright or Bernard Hopkins or Oscar De La Hoya, they were characters that were developed and they fought each other. Even Sugar Shane Mosley. So you have to develop the characters. That's the problem with boxing. So if you have characters in Floyd Mayweather and a character in Logan Paul, then use them, even if they're bringing the eyeballs, Showtime, whatever, and then put those other young guys on there so that people can actually see real boxing and real talent. I still believe the public, I know I do, still has a very good appetite for good boxing. No doubt in my mind about it. But if you're not developing the characters and you're not giving us the fights, then what are we supposed to do?
Oh, there's absolutely an appetite for boxing. I mean, just think the not the was it the Wilder? Yeah, it was the Wilder Fury
Fury
fight that
fight.
you and I watched. People love that, and like you said, characters. Tyson Fury's a character. He built that whole thing by just talking trash to the Klitschko brothers. That's how he built his whole career and got the fight,
Got a
dominated that
story
fight.
as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and he's a star, and he's put the heavyweight division on his back right now.
But he's a star who can't even fight the other big British star because of politics.
Because of
Like,
the
and Wilder's a star
the
too, but like,
rematch.
yeah, I mean these clauses and all that. Like, my thing is, if that was the case, then Wilder Fury 3 should have been booked right after
Mhm.
the second fight. Get it out the way, and because we should already be on Fury Anthony Joshua right now.
The unified championship fight.
There's no reason. And then they were trying to do it in Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia somewhere.
They should do it in the O2 Arena in
I'm
England.
like, how is this not
That's
like a civil war in
yeah,
England? I don't understand that. Like,
yeah.
but that's the problem with boxing. So don't put it on the Paul brothers. The Paul brothers is bringing eyeballs to a sport because y'all don't know how to do it. Bob Arum, right? Like, you all these guys. And I like what the PBC has done. Eddie Hearn and what he's trying to do, but it's still a problem. And you have the Canelo and DAZN and Golden Boy mess, and now they're trying to shift to Ryan Garcia. It's too much politics. So that's the problem with boxing. It's not the take advantage of the eyeballs, and it should be, we want the exposure, even if it comes off as a gimmick. Sometimes a lot of people don't know this, but exhibition fights are popular in the sport of boxing. Muhammad Ali fought so many different exhibition fights against people who were not boxers. He fought like an NFL player back in the day. He fought I think it was a Japanese wrestler who they mixed up the rules where the guy was allowed to kick Ali in the fight, and Ali's legs were almost they had to have a conversation about amputating one of his legs because he's suffered so much damage. So exhibitions have always been, I think, even going back to Sugar Ray Robinson fought like weirdos. Shoot, I remember growing up, Mike Tyson was in WrestleMania
Mm-hmm.
and when he joined
Stone Cold.
DX.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Stone Cold.
So and then he left Shawn Michaels and joined Stone Cold Steve
Stone Cold.
Austin.
Yep.
Yeah, so exhibitions and all this stuff have always been a part of it. I think Floyd even was in a WrestleMania with the Big Show. So that stuff it's fine. Develop the characters, and boxing will follow, just like any other sport. But Tran, it's always good chopping it up with you, man. Any other thoughts?
Always. No, man, just good. Yeah, it's good to see you, man. Like I said,
I'm sorry I got ranty there. It's just it's my favorite, one of my favorite sports, and it's something that my dad and I like. That was our bond was over boxing, and the way that this sport has gone. And boxing, it was a long time coming, but stuff like this and crap like this is why, you know, the political crap is spoiling boxing. But anyway, we'll be back with more content, more videos. Just wanted to give a little breakdown for the upcoming fight. Give us your predictions for Adesanya Vettori 2 at UFC 263, as well as anybody else on the card you're looking at. And help us get to 10K. We're almost there.
So close.
Tap in. So close.
Share. Like, share.
Subscribe. Tell a friend. Yeah. You know, all that. But anyway.
Carrier pigeon, whatever.
Anyway, we out. Peace.
Later.